Week 7 is here, and Tanner's breaking down everything you need to know. We've got our free bet of the week, stock up, stock down, DraftKings Player of the Slate, and our Primetime Preview with a London prop that you do not want to miss. Let's jump in.
The time is now for the Dr. Bob Sports Podcast. I am Tanner. I am our head of analytics, and I'm in my 9th year working alongside Bob, originating our NFL and college basketball bets. And today, as always, I'm joined by our digital media specialist. Grant, your thumbnail last week was prophetic.
Oh, that worked out pretty well, huh? I mean, Drake May with a nearly perfect passer rating again, and then Josh Allen only had 157 net passing yards in Atlanta, so we won one of our free bets with the under in that game last week.
And unfortunately, we lost the other free bet we talked about on last week's podcast. Baltimore plus 7.5 ultimately came down to that drive in the first half where the Ravens had a 1st and goal from the 4 and came away with 0 points. They tried a couple of tush pushes with Mark Andrews and that 4th down run to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and they also had that 10-minute drive in the 4th quarter where they got into the red zone, but they were stopped again. So we were 1-1 on the week, and that puts you at 25, 16-1 on podcast sides and totals dating back to 2023. But where do you want to go for the free bet of the week this week?
We're going to take under 55 in Commanders Cowboys. So CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin are back here. Everyone's getting excited about a shootout. This definitely got bet to the over early in the week, but I think it went way too far. We haven't seen a total this high in the NFL since Commanders-Lions in the playoffs last year. We actually bet strong opinion over in that game, but I feel the exact opposite here. So, I mean, the Cowboys clearly have a top 10 offense in my eyes with CeeDee Lamb back on the field, but they're nowhere near as good as the Lions offense was last year with Ben Johnson at offensive coordinator. Meanwhile, I think the Dallas defense is basically on par with that Lions defense we saw in the playoffs. Missing Aiden Hutchinson, missing Aleem McNeil, missing Carlton Davis, didn't have Marcus Davenport. I think, the Cowboys defense is finally healthy for the first time all season. I think they are as good as that Detroit defense. So now you're looking at a total price at the exact same level. I think the defenses are about the same, but obviously the Cowboys offense is not as good as last year's Lions offense.
Yeah, and it's safe to say you don't think they're the worst defense in the NFL, but that's how the betting market is implying with this total.
You basically have to believe that. You have to believe the Cowboys have the worst defense in the league to get a total here at 55 with them being a home underdog. I kind of think they have a good matchup here with Matt Eberflus's, Tampa 2 cover 3. That's designed to force quick throws and rally to the football, which kind of is exactly how you neutralize Cliff Kingsbury's air raid. Kingsbury uses static formations, predictable route distributions. That plays right into Eberflus's zone drop rules, which flood shallow windows and take away rhythm throws. I think this is going to kind of force Jaden Daniels to matriculate the ball down the field, long drives. I have this game projected for the lowest combined plays of the week, and that's going to be really hard to go over a total of 55.
Absolutely. Well, what about the other side of the ball? How does this Dallas offense match up with the Commanders' defense?
Well, the Dallas offense has been play action heavy in Brian Schottenheimer's, first year at head coach here, but Washington's defense is 4th relatively against play action compared to standard dropbacks.
Well, the Commanders need this game after losing at home versus the Bears last week, and Washington's playoff chances go from 60% if they can beat Dallas down to 30% if they lose this game.
Yeah, I mean, massive leverage here, right? And, they have a defensive-minded head coach, so I think they're going to be playing to not make a mistake like they did last week. That leads me to be skeptical that Dan Quinn's going to want to go in here in a turbo shootout. I mean, our model makes this game 52. I think that's about right. I can't see this as the highest total all season.
Yeah, this sounds like a great game to also fade in your DFS lineups because so much of the field is going to be stacking it, going to be super chalky. But let's shift over to our next segment here. We've got stock up, stock down, and whose stock are you buying this week?
Kansas City's offense. So Chiefs are already 4th in EPA per play here, and now they're getting Rashee Rice back. He averaged 3.16 yards per route run last season. Presumably he's going to be taking over that Juju Smith-Schuster role, and Smith-Schuster is averaging 1.23 yards per route run. So a massive upgrade there. And Patrick Mahomes has a pretty favorable matchup in his first game with the full complement of weapons because the Raiders' pass defense is 1.5 points worse than their run defense, according to our metrics. That's 30th relatively in the league. And the Raiders have been worse against play action. They're going to struggle against these Chiefs RPOs.
Yeah, and I normally leave the betting to Tanner on this show, but earlier in the week, DraftKings had Rashee Rice to catch a pass on the first drive at minus 139, but since then, they've took it down for some reason. But if they do post it again, I would definitely be betting that.
Yeah, I mean, Raiders have a league high 89% zone coverage rate. If Andy Reid wants Rashee Rice to get the ball early, he'll be able to scheme that up.
Definitely. But who else are you going to be buying this week?
I'm going to buy Tennessee's defense. So I think they're going to get, a little bit of a bump in that first game with the interim head coaches. Interim head coaches in their first game in the last 10 years are 16-6 against the number. And they also have clear matchup advantages on defense because they play a lot of zone coverage, and Drake May has been relatively worse against zone. Patriots also, we talked about this previously, have used a ton of heavy personnel. They like to get multiple tight ends on the field, but Tennessee's defense has done a good job taking that away. Tennessee has actually three pretty solid safeties, and I think they'll be able to shut down Hunter Henry, who's fourth in yards per route run among tight ends. And then you look at it up front, Jeffrey Simmons has been one of the best players in the NFL this season. He's been really the only bright spot for the Titans, and he's going to be lining up across from rookie left guard Jared Wilson. I like a lot of the matchups here. I like the motivation edge for Tennessee's defense, and I just think they're going to be able to hang in there and make this harder on the Patriots than some people seem to believe, because everyone just thinks, oh, it's a turbo smash spot for Mike Vrabel in his revenge game.
Yeah, I mean, getting Callahan out of there might be huge for them. But whose stock are you going to be selling this week?
Jets offense. I mean, it looks like Garrett Wilson's not going to play here. They're already down Josh Reynolds. That leaves Arian Smith, Alan Lazard, Tyler Johnson as the only wide receivers on the Jets' 53-man roster. Now, the Jets already have a league-high run-play rate adjusted for situation. They're running it a ton. Now, without Garrett Wilson, they might just run it on every single snap. But the Panthers is not the team you want to do that against. They got Derek Brown back this year, and the Panthers' run defense is a league-high 2.5 points better than their pass defense. They're going to shut down the Jets' running game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas led the NFL in rushing success rate coming into last week, but the Cowboys were absolutely shut down. They rushed for 31 yards on 19 carries.
Yeah, and really all that Justin Fields can do with Garrett Wilson out that isn't running is throw screens to Breece Hall, but Carolina's defense is third in EPA per target allowed to running backs. So it's not looking good for the Jets offense. This was a bad week to lose Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, this is kind of a nightmare situation, but who else are you going to be selling?
I'm selling Caleb Williams this week. I mean, the scheme has been really solid from Ben Johnson this year. Caleb's 71.5% expected completion percentage is the highest in the NFL. So, Ben Johnson is scheming guys open for Caleb Williams, but he's been the fourth most off-target quarterback in the league. Caleb's just not able to hit those tight windows that Jared Goff was able to for Ben Johnson last season. And as a result of that, he's 31st relatively against zone coverage compared to man, and the Saints have the fourth highest zone coverage rate in the NFL.
All right, well, let's shift over to our next segment here. We've got our DraftKings player of the slate, and who are you putting in your lineups on Sunday?
I'm going to put in Harold Fannin at 3,900. So we had 10 targets last week because David Njoku only played half the game, but Fannin didn't find the end zone. I really think this is the breakout game for him because David Njoku is likely out again. Fannin's been more efficient on his targets than Njoku has this year, and the Browns have a pretty good matchup against that Dolphins cover 2 because Kevin Stefanski's structure hunts leverage via run action and layered route concepts that beats cover 2. Cleveland's offense is averaging 27% more yards per pass play against cover 2 compared to other coverages. That's fifth best relatively in the NFL.
Yeah, to add to that, Miami's defense is the worst in the NFL in the last 25 seasons. I mean, they're surrendering a score on 60% of possessions.
Really, the only major concern for the Browns here is going to be the Miami blitz because it looks like they're going to be without Jack Conklin again. But that's kind of why I'm bullish on Fannin, right? Stefanski has shown an ability to get Fannin the ball in the screen game, and that's how you counter these blitzes that Miami is going to be sending. So, I think he's going to be targeting Fannin in the cover 2. I think he's going to be targeting Fannin to counter the blitzes. Yeah, I think Fannin is going to be a major part of the game plan this week, and he's priced all the way down at 3,900.
I love that one. Well, let's shift over to our next segment here. We've got the weather of the week, and what are you seeing out there?
Well, at least on Sunday morning, it is looking ugly across the Midwest. Now, it remains to be seen whether that's going to clear up by game time at, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central. I mean, it looks like there could be some pretty heavy rain in Cleveland, while Nashville and Chicago could have 30-mile-an-hour plus wind gusts.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last Monday night how wind and rain can really affect the game. I mean, the Commanders fumbling late in the fourth quarter dropped their win probability from 85% down to 58%, and then they ultimately lost to the Bears. But let's shift over to our next segment here. We've got the injury watch. And let's start in Minnesota, where both teams have been banged up but are getting healthier. The Vikings are getting back 2 starters on the offensive line and 2 starting linebackers, while the Eagles are getting back cornerback Quinyon Mitchell, defensive tackle Jalen Carter, and left guard Landon Dickerson.
Both teams getting a lot healthier here. Now, we don't know who's going to be starting for the Vikings at quarterback. Wentz has certainly been better than J.J. McCarthy to this point, but I have them both rated about the same.
Yeah, and the Commanders had 4 sacks on Justin Herbert in week 5, but the coaching staff had a week to game plan the offense for missing both starting tackles, and then the Dolphins only had 1 sack on Herbert last week.
Yeah, and I don't think Indianapolis has that kind of game-wrecking pass rush that the Chargers can't scheme out of again on Sunday. I mean, their best pass rusher is DeForest Buckner, and he's going to line up across from Los Angeles' best remaining offensive lineman, left guard Zion Johnson, who ranks 5th in pass blocking efficiency.
Yeah, so it sounds like Herbert's going to be able to remain upright in this one, and he's going to be able to target his wide receivers in a favorable matchup because the Colts secondary has been just as banged up as the Chargers offensive line. I mean, the Colts were without their top 3 cornerbacks, Jalen Jones, Travarius Ward, and Kenny Moore last week, and then backup cornerback Xavier Howard retired, and then backup nickelback Mike Hilton is on the practice squad, injured reserve with a shoulder injury, and then Shane Steichen says that starting nickelback Kenny Moore will return to practice this week, but it remains to be seen if he's going to be healthy enough to get into that game. But even if he does play, it's obviously not full health.
Yeah, and on the outside, Mekhi Blackmon has surrendered the 7th most yards into his coverage this season. I mean, the Vikings thought so little of him. They traded him right before the season, despite having very little depth at the position. And then the other outside starting cornerback this week with Ward out again is going to be their 6th choice, Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah, not great. And then the Colts wide receiver Josh Downs has a 62% success rate, but it also sounds like he's going to be out with a concussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, the Colts are just as banged up as the Chargers there. Well, let's move over to the Cardinals quarterback situation. So, Kyler Murray is practicing this week. I don't know if that means he's going to play. Jacoby Brissett averaged 6.8 yards per pass play, so I don't know that they will want to rush Murray back, but Jacoby Brissett did that against that Colts cornerback situation that we just talked about, and regardless of who's under center this week, they will be without Marvin Harrison, who's averaging 0.51 more EPA per target than Zay Jones. He's a major part of Arizona's passing game, and the Packers defense ranks 6th in dropback success rate allowed. So I don't really like the matchup for either Jacoby or Kyler, who's ever starting on Sunday.
Yeah, Brissett put up some pretty good numbers last week, but what do you think about the loss of Fred Warner for the 49ers?
I mean, it's huge. That defense is now probably one of the worst in the NFL without Bosa and Warner, but it's worth noting when they get all their guys back on offense, that unit is going to be top 5. Mm-hmm. This team will be playing into shootouts when Kittle, Purdy, Pearsall all come back. I mean, they're already 7th in success rate with those 3 guys missing a combined 11 games.
Well, we'll see who they get back this week, but let's shift over to our primetime preview. And in the time of recording, we've got Seattle -3 versus Houston.
Yeah, and Houston, it's been a while now, but let's remember, Houston was 30th in success rate through the first 3 weeks of the season, and then they had just a 32% success rate in the first half against the Titans before, the defense finally got tired because Tennessee's offense couldn't stay on the field. Houston scored 20 fourth quarter points in that game, and then they averaged 6.3 yards per play against Baltimore's junior varsity defense before the bye week. So there's problems with Houston's offense that have been masked for basically the last month because they played Tennessee and Baltimore's JV, and I think those problems come home to roost in Seattle on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks are 9th in sack rate compared to the Ravens, who are 29th, and then the Titans, they were 25th.
And the Seahawks, they use the 5th highest stunt rate in the NFL, and the Texans are allowing a 53% pressure rate against stunts this season. Seattle also might be getting back 3 starters in the secondary, so I just think they're going to completely shut down C.J. Stroud on Monday night. And then on the other side of the ball, I don't really love the matchup for Clint Kubiak, who's, in that Kyle Shanahan tree, the wide zone, the play action. That's kind of what D'Amico Ryan's built his defense to stop, with the 4-3 quarters match structure there. And I think he's going to be able to use those fast-flowing linebackers to neutralize those stretch concepts.
Yeah, definitely a tough matchup. I mean, Houston's defense allowed 4.2 yards per carry last season, ranking 8th in the NFL. And then this year, they're at 3.9 yards per carry. So unbelievable.
And I mean, it's not really looking great for Sam Darnold through the air either. He's got it done really by throwing to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's averaging a league high 4.43 yards per route run this year. But Texans have answers there. I mean, All-Pro Derek Stingley is going to be probably lined up across from Smith and Jigba most of the time. Texans are 5th in success rate allowed to opposing wide receivers. So our model favors the Seahawks by 5.5 here. I definitely lean their way. I think this should probably be priced at least Seahawks minus 3.5. But, don't love the matchup for Seattle's offense. So maybe you look towards a Texans team total under on Monday night.
All right, well, before we go, let's do our primetime prop. And last week, you won on Rome Odunze under 66.5 receiving yards, so that puts you at 28-21 on podcast props dating back to 2023.
This week, I'm going to take Kyren Williams over 17.5 carries. So Puka's out for the Rams on Sunday. It's going to be raining in London. Blake Corum is likely going to miss this game. That just sets up for a smash spot for Kyren.
Yeah, and the Jaguars didn't show any ability to sustain drives last week in their first game without Brenton Strange.
They didn't. And I mean, it looks like they're going to get Robert Hainsey back, but it's just not a good matchup for Jacksonville's passing game that's been much better against man coverage than zone coverage this year. And we know Chris Shula is going to play a ton of zone. Plus, you've got Jared Verse lined up across from Walker Little. That's a huge advantage. Rams. So I don't know. Jacksonville might hit some explosives here, but I think the Rams are going to have the ball for the majority of the game, and that's good for Kyren.
Okay, well, I love that pick, and that will do it for our Week 7 preview. If you're looking for more content, make sure to head over to drbobsports.com, where you'll find Tanner's NFL write-ups as well as Bob's college football analysis, and we will see you guys next Friday to preview Week 8.